Hello everyone, and welcome to my trash summary of weeks 1 and 2 in the Overwatch League. This is a series I hope to continue throughout the year, with some weeks getting solo videos and some others getting combined like this one. Weeks 3 and 4 will most likely be separate videos. Anyways, back to week 1 and 2. The homestands were hosted by the New York Excelsior and the Dallas Fuel in week 1, with the Philadelphia Fusion being the sole host in week 2 due to the Shanghai Dragons having their homestands cancelled because of the coronavirus. The highlights from these two homestands were both the New York Excelsior and the Philadelphia Fusion opening up their seasons with dominant wins at their homestands. The New York Los Angeles Valiant also really impressed a lot of people, myself included, at the Dallas Fuel homestand. And finally, the Houston Outlaws have shaped up to be potentially one of the worst teams in the league this year after a poor showing at the Fusion homestand. I will be going through a quick summary of how this video will work. I will be showing the final score to each match and the score from each map, along with data about the team's win-loss record on those maps and modes. I will also be showing the team's actual win-loss record with their standings. However, the standings will only be there if it's the team's last match of the week. After showing that, I will be showing the results of the community MVP votes that I put up in the competitive Overwatch subreddit and a few community discords that will be linked below. The results of the MVP votes will be shown in percentages. The players that had the highest percentage of voters vote for them will get the points. I will also be giving a one-sentence summary for each team in their matches, and then I'll be giving a reason for why I gave that team that one-sentence summary. The third Overwatch League season opened with my favorite team, the Toronto Defiant, defeating the weakened Paris Eternal at the New York homestand 3-1. Paris won the first map Lijiang Tower 2-0, but then the Toronto Defiant would take the rest of the maps, winning Iconwald 4-3, Horizon Lunar Colony 3-2, and then finally Havana 3-0. This would leave Toronto's record at 1 win and 0 losses, with a map differential of +2, and this would leave them 4th overall, equaled with the San Francisco Shock at the end of the first 2 weeks. While the Paris Eternal obviously ended with 0 wins and 1 loss, with a map differential of -2, but they would have another match the next day. Now, moving on to the MVP points. XE easily took the 3 points, as 83.9% of the voters gave him a vote. Kariv from the Toronto Defiant took the 2 points, with 52.4% of the voters giving him a vote. Shawfall would then take the 1 point, with 48.8% of voters giving him a vote. Moving on to my one-sentence summaries, for Toronto I decided to put Gamer Snacks with good DPS gets the win, boys. I chose this because I personally believe Toronto's DPS and Kariv did really well against the weakened Paris, and the constant rotations from the DPS helped give each of them a refreshing break. For Paris, I decided to go with, bruh, we need off-tanks that are available to play. I chose this because with Smek sick and Hanbin still underage, Paris didn't have an available off-tank, which forced them to play their 2 main tanks, Benbest and No Smite, and only play Rhino-Rissa. While Rhino-Rissa is a good comp, they went up against a main tank and off-tank who had more practice with their composition because they were the only tanks on Toronto. While Paris had 4 tanks, which most likely means that Benbest and No Smite would have had not as much time to practice their Rhino-Rissa composition. The next match of the day was between the London Spitfire and the New York Excelsior. The London Spitfire would win the first map, taking Lijiang Tower 2-0. But the New York Excelsior would extinguish any hopes of the Spitfire pulling an upset, winning Kings Row 3-2, Horizon Lunar Colony 2-1, and Junkertown 3-0. This left London with a record of 0 wins and 1 loss, with a map differential of -2. And it left New York Excelsior with 1 win and 0 losses and a map differential of +2, but both teams would have another game the next day. Moving on to the MVP voting, Hopper was the resounding favourite, as he took the 3 points with 82.7% of voters giving him a vote. Jonak took the 2 points, with 52.4% of voters giving him their vote. Who Are You ended up taking the 1 point, with 34.5% of voters giving him their vote. The one-sentence summary for both teams here were similar, as I gave London, hell yeah boys we won a map, and I gave New York, yo. How'd we lose a map? The reason I went with these is because I personally believe that London taking a map off New York was an amazing feat for a team full of unproven players at the top level, especially since they didn't need to go to a third point for it as well. New York's explanation is the opposite. I think New York should have not lost a map here, primarily because their entire team is comprised of at least A-tier talent and primarily proven talent in the Overwatch League. But New York still lost a map to an unproven team. This may have been due to underestimation of London, because I can't see any other reason for London being able to take a map off New York. The next match that occurred was the 5-map epic in Dallas between the Los Angeles Gladiators and the Vancouver Titans. The Gladiators took the first map, beating the Titans on the PAL 2-1. Vancouver would take the next two maps, taking Kings Row 2-3 and Hanamura 0-2. The Gladiators would then force map 5 as they took Dorado 2-1. But the Titans were able to finish the job as they beat the Gladiators on the last map, Lijiang Tower, 1-2. This left the Gladiators with a record of 0 wins and 1 loss, and a map differential of -1, and they were left at 16th after the end of the first 2 weeks. The Titans were 1 win and 0 losses, and a map differential of +1, but they had another match the next day. Moving on to the MVP votes, O.W.L easily got the 3 points, with his percentage of voters being 87.5. The 2 points went to Twilight, as he got the second highest percentage of 48.2, while Birdring narrowly took the 1 point, with a percentage of 31.5. Moving on to the 1-sentence summaries, for the Gladiators I put, don't ask us why OG was subbed out most of the time, we don't have a good reason. I chose this because when asked about why LH Cloudy was playing more than OG, the Gladiators head coach Deepe put out on Twitter that it was because LH Cloudy was a very good Rhine. Now don't get me wrong here, LH Cloudy is a good player, and he can play Rhine fairly well. But I personally believe that OG is the better Rhine. Now, Cloudy may have performed better in scrims, and that's the reason they had him in more. But I believe that Cloudy's mistakes may have cost them the match, because they were very obvious and Vancouver could take advantage of it very easily. Now onto the Vancouver Titans summary. I simply put Haxal plus Nanoblade equals GG. The reason I decided to go with something this simple is because I believe their Nanoblades were one of the biggest reasons for them defeating the Gladiators, as the Gladiators typically struggled a lot against this combo. The next match was between the new look LA Valiant and the Dallas Fuel. The Fuel gave their fans some hope by winning the first map, taking Lijiang Tower 1-2. But the Valiant then took that hope away from the fans, narrowly taking Blizzard World first 3-2, then Horizon Lunar Colony 4-3, and Junkertown 3-2. This left the Valiant at a record of 1 win and 0 losses, and a map differential of +2, and Dallas at 0 wins and 1 loss, with a map differential of -2, but both teams would play again the next day. Moving on to the community MVP votes, KSP took the 3 points with his voter percentage of 82.1. Decay took 2 points with his percentage of 74.4, and McGravy took the 1 point with a percentage of 61.3. Going to the 1-sentence summaries, for Valiant I put, the scrimbucks are real. I did this because if you didn't already know, leading up to the season, players from top teams such as BabyVay and Super said that the Valiant would make the top 12, much higher than the 19th spot most people had been placing them at. This led to a huge turn in predictions, with more people rating Valiant higher than Dallas, and this first match of theirs proved why they accumulated all these scrimbucks. For Dallas, I decided to put, on the bright side, at least Decay did well. I chose this because it was one of the few bright spots for Dallas in this match. I think Decay's performance here helped show off some of his hyped up skill we didn't get to see last year. There were other Dallas players who did well, notably Doha and Crimzo in their Overwatch League debuts. But I think Decay was Dallas's MVP for this match. The next match to occur was the first 3-0 of the season, as the London Spitfire were defeated by the impressive looking Paris Eternal. Paris first took Nepal 0-2, then Kings Row 3-4, and then sealed the match with a 1-2 win on Hanamura. This left the London Spitfire at 0 wins and 2 losses and a map differential of -5, leaving them 19th at the end of the first 2 weeks. While for Paris, this big win left them at 1 win and 1 loss and a map differential of +1, leaving them equal 6th at the end of the first 2 weeks. Moving on to the MVP votes, there were 2 resounding favourites in this match, being Exi and FD God. Exi took the 3 points, with a percentage of 90.5, while FD God took the 2 points, with a percentage of 88.1. Bernard would take the 1 point though, with a percentage of 35.1. For London's one sentence summary, I decided to put how we win a map against New York, but none against Paris. I chose this because I find it baffling that London could win a map against New York, a team predicted to finish second, but somehow not win one against Paris, a team who most people are predicting to finish bottom 5. To me, this reinforces the point that London only took a map off New York because New York underestimated them, which isn't good because it makes it seem as if London needed New York to underestimate them to have a better chance at winning. For Paris, I chose, forget what we said about our off tanks, we have Xe. I chose this simply because Xe absolutely killed it in this match, and I believe because of the way he played in this match, Paris did not need to worry about their off-tank players being unavailable, because Xe was just that good. Next, we move on to New York's 3-0 win against the New Look Boston. New York sent their fans home happy, first taking Oasis 0-2, then Blizzard World 1-2, and finally Temple of Anubis 2-3. This left Boston with a record of 0 wins and 1 loss, with a map differential of -3, which left them 17th after the first 2 weeks. While this let New York gain more momentum, as they were left with a record of 2 wins and 0 losses, and a differential of +5, which left them tied for first after the first 2 weeks. New York dominated the community MVP votes, with Hotbar scoring the 3 points by a single vote. He garnered a percentage of 64.3%. Jonak missed out on the 3 points by only 1 vote, and held on to the 2 points by only 3 votes, as he garnered a percentage of 63.7. Sabiolby took the 1 point with a percentage of 61.9. For Boston's one sentence summary, I decided to just put, it's gonna be a long season. I chose this because I couldn't think of a better summary for this match, as it seems most of their games will be like this. Matches where they are no chance and matches where they will get demolished. The only matches I can see Boston winning are against teams such as Dallas and Houston. For New York, I decided to put homestand number 1, a major success. This was a no-brainer for me, as the New York homestand seemed to be a massive success. It attracted a huge crowd and a huge number of New York fans, and those fans were able to see their team start off their season with 2 strong-looking wins. Next, we move on to the LA Valiant versus Vancouver match. The scoreline here didn't really reflect how close this game was at times, with both the Valiant and Vancouver setting great times on Blizzard World. But in the end, Vancouver did Vancouver things and won. First taking Lijiang Tower 0-2, then Blizzard World 4-5, and then Temple of Anubis 2-3. This left the LA Valiant with a record of 1 win and 1 loss, and a map differential of -1, leaving them 9th at the end of the first 2 weeks. Vancouver winning left the Titans at 2 wins and 0 losses, with a map differential of +4, leaving them 3rd after the first 2 weeks. Haxal would again take the 3 points in the community MVP vote, with a percentage of 75%. Twilight would again take the 2 points, with a percentage of 56%, while KSP from the LA Valiant scored points again, taking home the 1 point with a percentage of 54.2. For Valiant's one sentence summary, I decided to go with, the Screambucks are still real. The reason I chose this was obvious, because the Valiant looked extremely impressive against the Titans, and they looked extremely impressive throughout the whole Dallas homestand, and I would not be surprised if we did see the Valiant finishing in the top 12 and qualifying for the play-ins by the end of the season. For Vancouver, I simply put, eyes on the prize. I decided to put this simple sentence because that's how Vancouver seemed to me in this match, as if they were trying to make a statement on how their intentions are this year. And they are winning the championship and dominating the rest of the competition. Not finishing around the 4-6 mark like the predictions, but finishing the top 3 should be their minimum goal. Next, we move on to the finale of the Dallas homestand, the San Francisco Shock versus the Dallas Fuel. The Shock took the first 2 maps, winning on Oasis 2-1 and Eichenwald 3-1. But then Dallas shocked everyone, no pun intended, for holding the Shock on Horizon Lunar Colony and then taking the map 0-1. But the Shock quickly got rid of any chance of an upset, winning on Havana 3-0 and taking the game 3-1. This match left the Shock at a record of 1 win and 0 losses, with a map differential of +2, which left them equal 4th after the first 2 weeks. Dallas were left at 0 wins and 2 losses, with a map differential of -4, which had them land at 18th after the first 2 weeks. Architect took a well-deserved 3 points in the community MVP votes. After doing well on Ana, despite it being his first time playing her on the Overwatch League stage, he took the 3 points with a percentage of 67.3. Decay would then get his well-deserved votes, taking 2 points with a percentage of 62.5. Striker would then take the 1 point with a percentage of 58.3. For the Shock's 1-sentence summary, I decided to put Architect is now a flex player and a sleep god. The reason I chose this is obvious. It's because Architect played amazingly for his first Overwatch League match on Ana, and he hit some amazing sleep darts that really helped the Shock to this win. For the Fuel, I put taking a map off the Shock counts as a successful season. This was the obvious choice for me, because I didn't expect the Fuel to even come close to winning a map against the Shock, let alone challenge the reigning champions at all. But in this match, the Fuel did really well, and taking a map off the champions showed major improvement from the team. Now, we move on to week 2, with the first match of the Philadelphia homestand being between the Florida Mayhem and the Houston Outlaws. Florida swept the Outlaws, first winning Busan 2-0, but then narrowly taking Havana 1-0 and Eichenwald 3-2. This left the Mayhem at 1 win and 0 loss with a map differential of +3, and the Outlaws at 0 wins and 1 loss with a map differential of -3, but both teams played again the next day. Moving on to the MVP votes, Gangnam Jin got the 3 points with a percentage of 70. Gargoyle will get the 2 points with a percentage of 65.7, and BQB will get the 1 point with a percentage of 62.9. Moving on to the 1-sentence summaries, for the Mayhem I decided to go with, can we pause for a second to think? I chose this because I found it funny how the match was paused about 3 to 4 times because of technical issues on Florida's end. Actually though, Florida did really well in their match and deserved the win, and it was a great debut match from Gangnam Jin. For Houston, I put, we probably should have taken Neptuno's advice before he gave it to us. This is a reference to how Neptuno tweeted that the best way to work with the Brig Lucio comp that Houston were running was to swap the Brig to Ana. And Houston should have not had to wait till halfway through the match to realize this. Brig Lucio was a terrible choice. They had nowhere near enough burst healing, and when they ran the Brig Lucio comp, they were absolutely dominated. Now, we move on to the match between the Washington Justice and the Philadelphia Fusion. The Fusion won the first map with a Carpe clutch, taking the PAL 1-2. Washington then bit back, taking Havana 2-1. Philadelphia would then finish off the match by winning on Kings Row 2-3 and winning on Temple of Anubis 3-4, meaning the Fusion won the match 1-3. This would leave Washington at 0 wins and 1 loss, with a map differential of -2, and the Fusion at 1 win and 0 losses, with a map differential of +2, but both teams would play again the next day. Moving on to the community MVP voting, Carpe easily took the 3 points, with a percentage of 80. Sato would take the 2 points with a percentage of 55.7, and Corey would take the 1 point with a percentage of 44.3. For the 1-sentence summaries, I gave Washington, hopefully Corey's and Stratus's backs can last the whole season. The reason I chose this was because in this match, it seemed as if Washington were only able to stay in it thanks to Corey's and Stratus's plays. The rest of the team was just average or below average. If they want to be any chance at making playoffs or challenging the top teams, the rest of the team needs to lift their skill. For Philadelphia, I decided to go with Chipser with the carry, Carpe with the carry. Let me get one thing clear. I only chose this because it's a meme, and Carpe played Doomfist for like a minute and got 3 kills. But in all honesty, the Philadelphia Fusion players who played in this match did very well and show why they are a team to be feared this season. The next match was the absolute obliteration between the Washington Justice and the Houston Outlaws. Washington dominated Houston here. They first took Lijiang Tower 2-0, then Junkertown 3-1, and finally Kings Row 3-2. This match left the Justice at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map differential of +1, which placed them at equal 6th after the day was done. While for Houston, they are now 0 wins and 2 losses, with a differential of -6, placing them 20th, aka last, overall. Moving on to the MVP voting, Corey dominated it, taking the 3 points with a percentage of 87.1. Stratus took the 2 points with a percentage of 67.1, and Eli Vote took the last point with a percentage of 58.6. Moving on to the one sentence summaries, for Washington I went with, we found a good chiropractor for our DPS. His name is Eli Vote. The reason I chose this is because I think Eli Vote did amazing in this match. The rest of the team did as well, and Corey and Stratus popped off again. But Eli Vote really stepped up in this match. For the Outlaws, I went with, this team is effectively Jexay and Meko, with some other players making appearances. Why I went with this should be obvious. Houston were beyond terrible in this match. Jexay and Meko were average and they shined the most, but the rest of the team did absolutely terrible. Jexay and Meko didn't do the best, but the rest of the team just did so bad, I can't find a single reason for why they did so bad other than they're just really bad. Next, we move on to the final match of Week 2, between the Florida Mayhem and the Philadelphia Fusion. The Fusion took this match without losing a map, taking Lijiang Tower 1-2, Junkertown 2-3, and then taking Blizzard World 0-3. This match left Florida Mayhem at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map differential of 0, which has them 8th overall. While for the Fusion, this win has left their record at a solid 2 wins and 0 losses, with a map differential of +5, leaving them equal first. Moving on to the MVP votes, Carpe would again end up taking the 3 points, with a percentage of 72.1. Sato would also again end up taking the same number of points from Philadelphia's previous game, as he took the 2 points with a percentage of 64.3. Poco would end up taking the 1 point with a percentage of 42.9. For the one sentence summaries, I gave Florida, having a main healer that can't play Lucio is still okay. I chose this because having a main healer who can't play Lucio is not okay. Lucio has nearly always been in the meta, so having a main healer that can play him is essential, but Florida have decided to stick with Chris playing Brig instead, which I think is a bad idea. For Philadelphia, I decided to go with, Sato isn't actually as terrible as we thought. I went with this because this match was Sato's match. He did amazing here, and really helped guide the Fusion towards their free map victory. And I personally believed that he was going to be much worse in this, but he has currently proved me wrong and done really well so far. Now moving on to what most people are here for, the community MVP leaderboards. Overall, there is a 4-way tie in first, between Xe from the Paris Eternal, Hotbar from the New York Excelsior, Haxal from the Vancouver Titans, and Carpe from the Philadelphia Fusion. These 4 are tied for the top spot, with all of them sitting on 6 points. Then there is a 6-way tie for 5th, with Jonak from the New York Excelsior, Twilight from the Vancouver Titans, KSP from the Los Angeles Valiant, Decay from the Dallas Fuel, Corey from the Washington Justice, and Sato from the Philadelphia Fusion, all being tied on 4 points. Moving on to the top 10 TPS players, there's a 3-way tie in first between Xe, Haxal, and Carpe, as they are all on 6 points. There is another 3-way tie in 4th, with KSP, Decay, and Corey all being on 4 points. Architect is in 7th with 3 points. He may have played support on the weekend, but he's still listed as a DPS player on the Overwatch League website. If he has changed to Flex, I will put him in the category he plays more often. Stratus is in 8th with 2 points, while there is a 6-way tie in 9th between Shawfall, Who Are You, Birdring, Sabiolby, Striker, and BQB, as they are all on 1 point. Moving on to the top 10 tank players, Hopper is in 1st with 6 points, Sato is in 2nd with 4 points, and Gargoyle is in 3rd with 2 points. Then there is a 4-way tie in 4th, with McGravy, Benar, Eli Vote, and Poco all having 1 point. Lastly, I move on to the top 10 supports. Jonak and Twilight are tied in first with 4 points, while Gangnam Jin is in third with 3 points. Then there is a tie in fourth, with both Kariv and FD God having 2 points. Moving on to the Overwatch League standings, the New York Excelsior and the Philadelphia Fusion are tied in first place. The Vancouver Titans take third place, while the Toronto Defiant and the San Francisco Shock are tied in fourth. Then there is another tie in sixth with the Paris Eternal and the Washington Justice. After them, the Florida Mayhem take 8th. I forgot to insert the LA Valiant here, and I'm sorry about that, but they are 9th for anyone who doesn't know. After the Valiant, there are 6 teams who are yet to play, which are the Chengdu Hunters, the Hangzhou Spark, the Atlanta Reign, the Guangzhou Charge, the Seoul Dynasty, and the Shanghai Dragons, and they occupy the 10th spot. Then, in 16th, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators. In 17th, we have the Boston Uprising, and 18th is the Dallas Fuel. Rounding out the table, with the London Spitfire in 19th, and the Houston Outlaws in 20th. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. Week 3 will most likely be a solo video, but it will most likely be delayed as well and released on the Thursday or Friday before the Week 4 matches due to some outside interference. And thank you to the 168 people who voted on the Week 1 polls. This was much higher than I expected, and I want to thank everyone who did that. And then I want to thank the other 70 people who came back and voted in Week 2. I really thank you all for participating in this and helping me build this community MVP thing. And I'll see you all in the next video.